welcome to the first episode of the Pursuit of Profit pod, here with Israel. Thank you for coming, bro.
Thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
No worries, man. We've been meaning to do this for a while, but I was ill last week. I had to keep moving it, but we're here now. Yeah, thank you. Cool. So you obviously do a lot of things. I don't really know how to introduce you. So if you want to introduce yourself, just tell the people what you do and we'll take it from there.
Amazing. So obviously my name's Israel. Cryptocurrency investor, trader, property investor as well, but I'm also a Web3 consultant as of the last 1 to 3 years. I'm trying to really expand on, so that's what I currently do at the moment. As far as my experience also includes like program project management in terms of more like a corporate side of things. So yeah, like I've got quite a few things under my belt.
Yeah, fingers in a few pies. Cool. Well, take us back, like your upbringing. Obviously, you grew up in London, right? But your childhood, kind of up to now, the kind of journey, what it's been like, how you kind of got into it, to everything you do, and then we can go a bit deeper from there.
Amazing. So I guess a summary is more so born in London, West London to be more specific. Up until about the age of 4, moved over to East London, or East London / Essex, depending on where you're from, because where I am is like on the border. So if I say I'm from East London, they'll say, no, you're from Essex. If I say I'm from Essex, they'll say, no, you're from East London. So I don't claim anywhere, to be honest. So I just, based in East London at the moment. And so, that's more or less it from an upbringing. I guess there's the regular pressures of someone growing up in London, especially if you're not coming from, I guess, a well-off background. I wouldn't say it came from like extreme poverty or whatever it is, but more so from just like humble beginnings, regular parents, working class, did their best and raised 5 of us. So I have like 4 siblings. And to be honest, family is quite central, key theme to my upbringing. And here we are.
Cool. All right, perfect. So school and stuff, did you go uni or how did that all work?
Amazing. So yes, I did go to uni. Went to 6th form in Barking Abbey, went to Brunel, studied physiotherapy. But a lot of people actually don't know I did a 2nd degree actually. I studied music.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that one's probably a bit more low key, but that's always been a passion of mine. Come from a musical family. Guess that's more so from like my church upbringing. You get thrown on an instrument, you have to learn something. So I've always been like creatively inclined as well. That's probably it. Went to uni in West London. Both unis were in West London actually. Brunel and an institution for music as well, which is the Institution of Contemporary Music Performance.
Okay.
I've got my bachelor's or undergrad in both life sciences and music as well. So
Cool. All right, perfect. So crazy when I speak to people that went to uni. You went to uni twice, right? I didn't go to uni, so
okay.
Yes, that's cool. So after uni, how did you fall into kind of what you do now? Did you start working, or what happened after uni and until now?
I think, to be fair, my journey sort of started midway through uni. And I guess we could all pivot into like how I got into FX, so to speak. I guess midway through, in fact, I caught a glimpse of FX in 6th form. So it's probably around 10 years ago now. But back then, what was more popular was binary. I don't know if you're that old, you would understand.
I remember binary options. What was that show on Channel 4? The rich kids go spending. Elijah.
Yes.
And he had the gold lumber.
Yes, exactly.
And he done binary options.
Exactly.
And he listened to classical music while he was analysing the charts. Yeah, I remember.
Exactly. And then there was like a company called like 1-2 Trade or something like that. That's when like people started to become aware of FX. So obviously we tried it in 6th form, didn't go well. And then I think there was like a mentorship that I sort of subscribed to for a tiny bit. I think looking back, no one knew what they were doing. I think the strategy that I learned, the first strategy that the guy was teaching was like, oh, if the market goes 2 pips or in either direction, you trade in that direction. And so it was just no one made money, and then I just thought this is a bit ridiculous. But at the same time, it's like you try to reconcile the discrepancies because you see people saying, oh yeah, they're actually making money from this, or they're like wearing nice clothes, or they're wearing a suit, and those were the brokers at those times saying, oh yeah, join our brokerage firm, they're calling up your line, top up your account.
Yeah.
So then I think it was always in the back of my mind. Fast track to uni now, midway through, I came across AstroFX. And yeah, I think back then there was the Technical Tuesdays, and I think that more so then drew me in a bit more because then you actually got to see analysis, and then I guess the lifestyle around it as well. I think there were one or two other traders that were sort of on the rise around that time as well. And someone I think is the most or the longest standing person in trading that no one gives credit to, and credit in a jokey way, Greg Seckert.
Greg said,
That guy's adverts never stop popping up. Like he's been on it since then.
yeah.
So I guess people like that you just see the adverts here and there. Sort of keeping things ticking. But then I just remembered wanted to take a step and like bet on myself. I'm someone that loves to invest in myself. If I believe I can do something, I want to get the best education possible.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I think I used, was it my second semester's student finance?
When was this? What year?
I think probably 2015, 16.
Okay.
Forgive me, the dates are probably a blur. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, the third year of uni, second year, like I used like 2,500 from my student finance, which I think was as much as I had like in terms of like my maintenance and like grant and whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just said, I'm going to take this course, booked a group course, went down to Birmingham and did whatever. And then from there, yeah, that began the journey officially in terms of like actually having education behind me. Yeah.
Cool. So that was 2015, 2016. How did your journey kind of start out? Like, how long did it take you to get profitable? What were the kind of struggles in the journey like, to where you are now? Obviously, you know, trading profitably and, you know, now involved in crypto and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Take me from like 2016 onwards.
Let me put it like this. I wouldn't be honest if I said, or if I didn't tell you that I quit a few times in between. Contrary to some people who like learn in 6 months and then, hey, like they're the ready-made product. You have that, let's say 7-8 months after doing like a course or program, internalizing the information, you have the head knowledge, but you don't have the experiential knowledge. So it's like after it doesn't click, you know what, I'm gonna come back to this. You know, there's other pressures of life, you know, that you have to sort out, thinking of stuff like exams, thinking of like other bills to pay for and stuff like that. But in my heart, I reconciled that I was always going to be an investor, an entrepreneur. So I'll probably give it 2 years of being on and off.
From 2016 to what, 2018 then?
From 2016 to the end of midway to 2017, I'd probably say.
Okay.
It's either midway 2015 to 2017, and then taking it full on, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'd say that even marries around the time, well, that's later on that year where I became more involved with crypto.
Yeah.
But then as well as that, fortunately, I believe it's like a year after I left uni, I worked in a corporate company. They did like marketing and media, but it was more like the analytical side of it. It's not like social media ads and stuff like that. It's more like native content marketing. So I was there managing projects or managing budgets. They'll give you like 50K or 20K. You have to like run ads specifically. After that, I got the opportunity to work in Mayfair.
Yep.
So I believe that's where that sort of gave me like a second win, because around that time I'd started taking FX more seriously again.
Yep.
And then obviously the fact that I get to now work and sort of what I thought would be like more full-time within that type of environment, working with working with Astra at the time, that sort of allowed me to plug my mind in fully, if that makes sense. So after that, I'll probably say within the year that I left, that's when I saw the most growth that I have. Obviously working as well. Like I ended up being more focused on the job itself rather than having the opportunity to focus on the markets.
Get you. Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because looking back, there's a lot of skills that I did get to learn. And I think after that, when I had no other options per se, that's when I went fully fledged, and I was able to like master my analysis, master psychology, master just, I guess, having that as the sole stream that I had to bank on, if that makes sense. So yeah.
So when was that? What year was that?
That was 2017.
Just in time for crypto.
But this was at the top of 2017.
Okay.
So coming off the back of 2016 into 2017, that's where FX sort of took center stage, if that makes sense. But that's just more so from a soul of, that's all I did, if that makes sense. And then crypto was the back end of 2017, just in time for the bull run.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me when I think about it. But I think there was a seminar that we were doing that year, and we invited quite a lot of students. And then some of the guys were just talking analysis, and XRP came into the question. This was around August, September. And then I remember there was going to be a conference called Swell that Ripple do annually. And I believe that was either in September or October. So then I got in my first crypto position, XRP. I just loaded up on what I had at the time, which was probably like, I think 0.5 or 2 grand. And yeah, like I think the rest of the market was running. I was wondering, like, is this thing going to move? And then I believe it was either November or December, XRP just flew.
Yeah.
And that was my first exposure to crypto.
Yeah.
I was just like,
you were hooked.
This is crazy.
Yeah. I remember it went from like 20 cents to like $3.50 in like 3 weeks or something like that.
Exactly.
It was insane.
Exactly that. And for me, that was the most amount of money I'd seen from an investing perspective, especially within that time frame. Because it's like you're seeing 1.5 or 2 grand or whatever it was go to like 20K plus.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, like
yeah.
But it's all on your screen. Like,
yeah. Doesn't mean anything to yourself.
It doesn't mean anything to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing. Did I sell? That's the next question.
Of course not.
I didn't sell, because then that's when we were all being hoodwinked into believing XRP was gonna go to like 500 or 2,000 or this or that.
Yeah.
And so maximum pain after that.
Yeah.
Because the market dumps and then you're just left holding your bag. And I don't know what's worse, not liquidating or not having the money, or the feeling of having something and then it being taken away.
Yeah.
So then you're exposed to a lot of different narratives from a psychological perspective. But from then I was hooked nonetheless. I think for me, obviously I know you're a trader at heart. Me, I'm a crypto person at heart. Like, I think crypto won me over just purely because of the narrative behind it. FX is narrative, but I guess that's more if you're interested in fundamentals.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking more from an economic power perspective.
Yeah.
The implications it has socially, the ability it has to transform the economic order or the financial order as we know.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And the technology, blockchain, what it has the ability to do across different sectors.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that just drew me to it. So yeah, I think FX, I always love it.
Yeah.
But I think there's more to the narrative in crypto for me. But FX gave me the core grounding or foundation I needed in terms of analysis.
Yeah.
So a lot of the analysis that I learned picking up from FX was solidified in crypto.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you're translating, it's easier to translate from FX to crypto than crypto to FX.
Yeah.
A lot of the concept or a lot of how the market actually plays out, I feel like crypto is a more primitive form of the FX markets.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting in that regard. But yeah.
I think crypto kind of skews your views of returns as well. Like if you just started getting into trading in 2017 and you're used to a 10x in 3 weeks, and you come to FX and your USD moves 0.5% for the day,
100%.
you're like, what's this?
100%.
So yeah, I'm similar to you. I started in FX. I was part of the school of 2017 crypto, went through the same thing. I remember I was holding Dragon Chain. I was holding all these things through 2018, just watching the bags bleed. So similar kind of perspective to you.
Yeah.
Cool. So now in terms of markets now, macro wise, how do you kind of see things? Obviously last year was a extremely bearish year for markets. We saw the Fed raising rates.
Yeah.
Where do you kind of see things now, and where do you kind of see us going?
Right now, I just think everyone's clueless. Simply put, I think for the next year or so, I don't really see things improving drastically. I think there's a final washout that we need to see. Is it as extreme as everyone thinks? I don't think so. The reason I say that is because seeing cycles before, especially market cycles, when it comes to maximum pain, and there's the part after maximum pain where it's like, oh, there's a recession coming and everything's going to crash even further. It's like, it never usually happens that way.
Yeah.
That's probably around the time when things just get more boring in terms of price action consolidating. So I think the whole world is looking to the US now to see how they're going to respond. Are they going to raise interest rates? Are they going to keep it the same? Are they going to reduce it? Well, at the end of the day, the US, I think, is in the worst financial position that it's ever been in. The amount of debt that they have, there is no reasonable or feasible solution that they can offer without providing more pain. If you want to do it from a monetary perspective and you want to increase quantitative easing, well, you're further weakening the value of the dollar. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But then if you're saying that you want to reduce the amount people borrow as well, it's also paying for the average American.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because you were mentioning like BRICS earlier, and I think the rest of the world is also getting tired. They're also realizing that you guys are not in that position of power you've always been in. Even though your economy and your financial practices haven't been great, you've been able to get away with it because there's a buffer. But now you're actually at your tail's end, and we have the ability to make our own choices. So you're seeing people applying to become a part of BRICS now because they're seeing, like, we're emerging economies. We don't have everything, but if we're starting from the bottom, the only way to go is up.
Yeah.
You guys are at the top and it looks like you're about to sink. So really and truly, now we have to look at what is in our best financial interest or in the interest of our economy and for this nation. And so they're exploring other options. And I think obviously that ties in with some social and political narratives as well. Obviously, this is not a political podcast. So yeah. But I think a lot of countries aren't really happy as well with the way America and the UK are running internal affairs and how they're trying to impose it on everyone else. So they're like, look, our economic power as well as our ability to make decisions for ourselves politically, it may require us to step away from you. Now, who wins? In my opinion, everyone's going to feel it, because at the end of the day, the dollar is the global reserve.
Yep.
And so if most trade is currently transacted in dollars, if you withdraw from the dollar and you relinquish all your dollars, then let's be honest, you're pulling the plug.
Yeah.
And it's like, everyone's going to sink, but you have to bet on yourself that after you sink, you're going to be able to swim.
Yeah.
So I think that's the position everyone's in, where it's like the de-dollarization of different countries, it may be better in the long term or mid to long term, but short term, everyone's going to feel it.
Yeah.
That's just my personal perspective on a macro scale. Obviously, we're seeing the banking crisis as well. The Fed are trying to keep it harsh as to how bad the situation actually is.
Yeah.
And And I just don't see things getting better imminently. And even generally from a crypto perspective as well, I know we're not touching on that yet, but like that for me doesn't make me too optimistic short term on how the markets will respond.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, people are not suddenly going to trust crypto as the main form of the main way to protect your value. Every market is going to feel it. Do you know what I mean? But I think after the dust settles, that will give people the chance to be able to reevaluate their options and be able to test out new innovations or other alternative assets.
Yeah, so, I think you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think the Fed have kind of backed themselves into a corner, and it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like you say, if they keep rates low, then inflation gets out of hand. If they raise rates too much, it's a debt-based economy, and debt's at an all-time high. So the average American feels the pain. But no, let's move on to crypto. I think that's I think this ties in quite nicely with where markets are going and how crypto plays a part. Earlier you spoke about how FX is kind of the old system and crypto is the new system, so they kind of go hand in hand. How do you see crypto playing out? A lot of people are saying the bull run is going to be 2024, 2025. It's going to play out exactly like before. We've got the halving next year. How do you kind of see it? Because I'm almost in the same camp as you. I think there's probably another leg down for traditional markets, which will bring crypto lower. I actually think the crypto narrative has bottomed, after the FTX collapse,
exactly.
3AC, all the big liquidations that happened. I don't know what else can go wrong in crypto unless Tether goes bust. Then we're all... I'm not going to swear, but yeah, then the whole thing collapses. But where do you kind of see crypto in the next, say, 3 years?
I highly think this depends on narrative and landscape. But at the same time, if you want to sort of use the concept of things are, some people say written in the stars, these things aren't, it doesn't happen on a whim. A lot of what is happening now was decided 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So as much as I can say it depends on the narrative, it does, but at the same time, it's like, it's more or less probably going to play out a specific way. How I see it playing out is probably in between the two. I'm still sizing up whether the next bull run is going to be bigger than the ones before. Obviously, there's the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
As more volume is injected into the markets, generally speaking, the volatility decreases. But at the same time as well, I think a lot of investors are responding differently to the crypto markets. Why I say that is because what I'm noticing is that each bull market we see, I guess 2017, everything and anything would pump. The last bull run we saw, 2021, it was only a handful. And so, whereas you might have invested in like 10 to 15 projects, expecting all of them to shift, you're looking at it and you're like, wait, it's only like 4 or 5 of these that actually did anything significant. So what I'm looking at now is seeing how the banks are going to respond and how regulation begins to unfold. Why I say that now is because if we're expecting the next bull run to hit to the magnitude that we'd love it to, which is greater than the previous, we need institutional capital. Because as much as, I'm not sure how much retail investment can drive prices to where we want them to go. I don't think there's that much economic power unless 40-50% of the world decide to now plug all their funds into crypto. I'm not sure it's going to rise to the crazy numbers that people think it will, unless institutions play a part. And that's why I spoke about regulation. Now, what we're seeing now is a lot of institutions being stifled in terms of how they can engage with cryptocurrencies or digital assets because of financial regulators. You have the FCA, you have the SEC. Everyone can see what's going on in the States right now. And it's like, a lot of these people are scared to dip their toe in the markets because they don't know if they're going to get fined or sanctioned or sued. And they're literally making an example out of individuals. You have the Ripple lawsuit. God knows, like, what they pull them in for. Like out of all projects, like one of the most compliant in terms of like being meticulous in how they engage with the US government, like congressmen, congresswomen, and financial regulators. But they're the ones that are being penalized. And so for me, other people are looking at that and looking at that as an example and thinking, how much resources do we want to waste getting sued by the SEC or by the FCA or wherever else it is? And it's like, it's not worth it at the moment. And so I want to see how regulation develops. I want to see reform within the government to see how they're going to respond to crypto.
Yeah.
I also think it's a time where the wealth transfer that people have been talking about for decades, I feel like is very much on the horizon, but it's very much going to be in the hands of people that are innovative, that are forward thinking. Right now, you see the UAE and other countries or nations from the East, even within BRICS, that are saying, you know what, we don't have much now. Okay, you guys capitalize on this current financial order. We're going to lay the groundwork for being at the helm of the next. And so you see the UAE trying to become a crypto hub. Let's see what Rishi Sunak does, because he's trying to say that he wants to make the UK a crypto hub as well. Let's see what type of regulation they put forward or the framework they put forward, because I think everyone can sniff like the opportunity in this. So for me, I feel like the next year or so, we may not get as much action. I feel like we may begin to consolidate back end of this year into next year. And I think halfway next year, that's when we begin to build some momentum.
Around the halving?
Yeah.
Okay.
And even with the halving, I like to not see things in absolutes, because there's a quote that says history doesn't always repeats itself, but either leaves clues or it rhymes.
Right? It rhymes, yeah.
So it's like some people say, okay, like 3 weeks after the halving, that's when the market's going to turn around. Now, you may very well find that even before the halving, price starts to move.
Yeah.
I think that instead of focusing on price, just focus on being prepared and being positioned, because anything can happen.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, we could wake up and the markets are completely gone.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Or we could wake up tomorrow and the markets are at zero.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I try not to look at things in black and white anymore, and try to look at things more so in the holistic picture. And one thing about crypto is that it doesn't move in isolation. So for example, we see that something as trivial as the banking system failing, and then the response of the markets to it. So it's interesting to see that there's actually so many different components that can actually move the needle.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my view at the moment.
Okay. And you speak about institutional capital needing to come in. Do you think the Bitcoin spot ETF is going to be the catalyst that kind of opens the floodgates when that eventually, hopefully, gets approved? Obviously, we've got an ETF already, but it's not spot, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that's the catalyst, or what do you think will be the catalyst for, the pension funds and the big money to really come in?
I think is one of a few catalysts. I think is one domino in a line of many. And we're talking institutions, but there's more than one type of institution. So for example, you've spoken about the BTF or BTC ETF. Now that might cover the financial system, but that doesn't necessarily cover tech or healthcare. Do you get what I mean? Or governments. So I think, okay, all well and good. Now there's an ETF, there's a product for financial investors or people that have a financial backed portfolio, but then people that are surely interested in the enterprise. That's not necessarily what they're looking for to be able to engage with the markets per se.
Yeah.
So I do think that is one domino in the grand scheme of things. And why I say that is the Bitcoin ETF that was released, I believe a few years ago now, that actually led to the market tanking.
Yeah, it was pretty much the top, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
2021.
Exactly that. And so I think in that case as well, when it comes to financial products, people need to remember when you're a spot holder, you're actually holding the asset. You want it to do well. But these institutions that can actually trade it they don't care what direction it goes in. If it goes up, they make money. If they short the markets, they're gonna even make even more money.
Yeah.
So even when that I say that to say, even when that becomes a viable instrument for people to trade, people shouldn't read that as, oh, price is gonna go up now. No, price could equally tank.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. One thing on that as well, when you have those big events where you think the institutional money is going to come in, they normally mark the top.
Exactly.
2017, we all know.
Exactly.
School of 2017, the futures, right?
Yeah.
That was the exact top. Then we had the Coinbase IPO.
Yes.
That was at one top, 2021. Then it was the Bitcoin ETF.
Exactly.
Not the spot ETF, but... So my kind of thought process is when we get that spot ETF, that will probably be the top.
Yeah.
Or at least some kind of local top.
Yeah.
And then from there, you know, that will provide the kind of gateway for the institutional liquidity to come in for years to come, you know,
Exactly.
as Bitcoin slowly climbs and, you know, the dollar is devalued over time. Okay, cool. So in terms of a market top, I don't want any price predictions or anything like that, but the last top, we saw the total market cap around 3.3 trillion or something like that. Yeah. Where do you think we could go in the next, I don't know, by 2025, whenever the market does top in this next run?
I want to say 7.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say 7 trillion. If you ask me by the end of the decade, then I'll probably give you a different figure. And one could easily say, okay, if you're saying 7 by like 2025, then you're probably thinking 14 by 2020 or whatever it is. Well, no, not 2020, 2030.
Yeah.
That's not the case per se, because you have to leave room for exponential growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so each year that lapses from now leaves more room for significantly more advancement. I think Raoul Pal uses like the analogy of Metcalfe's law, and it's the network effect. And so I think that after 25 is probably when crypto or digital assets is going to see its biggest growth that we've seen so far. And I think by the end of the decade, we may reach a stage where the volatility we know the crypto markets for won't exist in the same way. I think it'll be very, very different. So I would say 7. I would say 7 trillion. I would say that just because I feel like, okay, unless we have significant changes or radical changes in regulation, I think by that time, maybe a few more institutions will be more comfortable with dipping their feet. Remember, these guys, they have portfolios of billions, some trillions. They're not going to dump 40, 50%. They're probably going to test out 5%, 7%. I'm not even sure if they'll put 10%, because even that seems, if they deem crypto as an alternative asset, I don't think they're going to quite yet pour everything inside. Yeah. But they will begin to wet their feet, and that will give us some volume. It will give us the momentum we need to be able to touch that next milestone. But then I think after that, once a few reputable names have cemented their stake within the markets, a few nations have claimed their stake, and a lot of the current nations that we would see as like superpowers or main powers are actually seeing these emerging economies thrive. They're going to want a piece of the pie. Yeah. From then we begin to see more of a global reform, or a new financial order. Yeah. So that's sort of my take. What about yours though?
Very similar, but just to caveat this, I don't want people to come back in 2 years like, on that podcast you said 7 trillion, the market topped at 6, I've lost everything. But no, very similar to you. I've actually got a note on my trading view chart, on my total chart, at 8. Okay. Sell everything. Yeah. Little note to self, because I think everyone's got 10 in their head, because it's like the market cap of gold. It's obviously a big psychological number. I just don't think, I think people will front run that. I think people will front run the 10, and I think 8, you know, it's decent multiples. Yeah. And that's probably why I'll be getting out.
I agree. I think what I've learned as well, whatever the majority think, is most likely not going to happen. Everyone was expecting 100K the last cycle. Yeah. We got to 65, and then even I got caught in it a bit. If not for like taking profits along the way, you're thinking, okay, this is the middle of the bull market. you're thinking price is relaxing now, then it's gearing up to take another leg up, and you're thinking, this is, I'm not sure things are gonna play out this way.
Yeah.
And it didn't.
Yeah.
So I usually reckon, obviously it's both sided, but whatever people tend to shoot for, they've either underestimated it or overestimated it. But I definitely think that, I'm not sure within the next cycle, we're going to see the flat out to the moon kind of bull run everyone's looking for. I almost feel like it's going to be more of an intermediate bull run where we do see gains, we do see a growth in trajectory, but I feel like it's definitely going to be pinned to macro affairs. And that's a better place that we're at, because 5 years ago, macro was not affecting crypto at all.
Yeah.
It's literally like, oh, these are the small fish, and it doesn't have much bearings. But now, when it comes to value, when it comes to, you're talking about the decrease in value of fiat currency or the fiat system or the financial monetary system, this was the very reason that crypto was formed. Well, Bitcoin anyway, from Satoshi's point of view.
Yeah.
And so now the purpose that which is being created for, the climate actually is more suitable to allow it to begin to play out in that way. So I think we need to give it a few more years for that to really unfold. Because I don't think America is going to crumble by the end of this year.
Yeah, neither do I. And a lot of people talk about the dollar going to zero, but it's kind of like zero against what, you know? All the other fiat currencies, or the DXY to zero.
Yeah.
But the DXY is just measuring it against the euro, the Swiss franc, the yen, and everyone's kind of in the same boat. All central banks have, stimulated massively over the last few years. So, I guess I kind of see it similar to you. I don't see anything immediately, but I have been having a conversation. I think we had the conversation at one point as well, that the dollar is coming towards the end of its tenure as the global reserve currency. When you look at history and how long every currency has lasted as its place in the global reserve currency, it's coming towards the end of that tenure. So what comes next? I don't know. I don't think it will be BRICS, but I do think it will be some kind of basket, right? 100%. Some kind of basket of, maybe a bit of the dollar, a bit of the yen, pound. I don't think it's going to be Bitcoin like some people say. I don't think it's going to be XRP like some people think. But we can get onto that in a bit. But talking about Bitcoin, how do you kind of see Bitcoin's place in the space? Do you think it's always going to be king, or do you think slowly it will start making its way down the rankings and ETH as well, the big two? Do you see ETH as the main layer one, or do you not think they're going to be able to scale?
That's a good question. I was thinking of something a few months ago, and I almost started to understand why Bitcoin maxis exist. And why I say that is because after seeing a few bull cycles, you begin to realize altcoins, it's like a lot of them are just what you'd call nonsense.
Yeah, it's a casino.
I don't want to call it luck.
Yeah.
Because there's calculated luck in a way. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But I haven't seen many altcoins outlast a cycle or even 2 cycles. The altcoins that did well in a cycle or 2 ago are not the same ones that do well.
I've been trying to tell people this. Everyone that's like, oh, I'm accumulating Solana through the bull market.
Please don't.
Bro, how was you accumulating Neo? All right? It did nothing.
And I learned that, and I think that was a huge blow to my ego, because then you begin to see how you become one of those old cats or those veterans, you know what, you're going after all these new projects and new stuff. It's like, you guys don't know what we're doing. We were here from 2017.
Yeah.
But then you're holding all these coins from 2017, and now someone's telling you about DeFi, you're like, DeFi? And then after DeFi, you're thinking, okay, let me catch up now. And now let me learn about DeFi. Then you learn about DeFi, and then now it's meme coins, or it's NFTs, or it's gaming, or it's the metaverse. So now my approach to investing is actually shifting quite a bit, where it's like you almost have to take things on a case-by-case basis. And it's highly dependent on narratives. So that's why I said I almost understand now why Bitcoin maxis think the way that they do. Because when all is said and done, really and truly, when you look at your portfolio, especially in a bear market, you probably want to see how much Bitcoin and ETH can I accumulate.
Yeah.
Now, you've mentioned do we see Bitcoin or Ethereum being overtaken? Bitcoin, I'm not too sure about, in the sense that I feel like if you're in crypto and you look at the technology available, you already know that Bitcoin is flawed. But to the world, when you talk about crypto, you talk about Bitcoin. More so, people don't even use the word crypto, they use the word Bitcoin to represent the whole crypto market.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, first mover advantage doesn't allow me to think that it's going to be toppled that easily. I think that Bitcoin will always have a place in the space, especially because of what it's been primed to do as Gold 2.0. No one uses Bitcoin for the tech. Everyone uses it as a store of value and its perceived properties as a good store of monetary value or wealth. So for that reason, you could say, I don't know, you could come up with X coin and say, oh, this is meant to be a better store of value. And I don't think people would take it on board because Bitcoin surely has that status or stigma attached to it. Ethereum, on the other hand, people primed it more so because of the technology. It was more efficient than Bitcoin because of the technology that it allowed for people to adopt and to build on top of it. Now, whilst it was effective in doing that, it's also flawed. Each bull run, we see how crazy the gas fees get. And people are realizing, if this is supposed to be more efficient for use cases, why are we spending more on gas fees than the asset itself?
Yeah.
So then it proves it's very tricky. Again, it sort of does have that first mover advantage from a more technology standpoint. And because the infrastructure is very robust in the sense that Vitalik has done a very good job of marketing himself. People almost look to him as like a crypto tech god or icon. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think what he's been able to forge with the Ethereum Foundation, especially with governments and all these important power players, I'm also not sure it's going to go away too soon. However, if you're a native crypto user and you actually want to build on top of a specific blockchain, you're going to look for more efficient platforms. And that's why I feel like the value gap is going to close between some of these lower cap or mid cap layer 1, layer 2 alternatives and bring it a bit closer to where ETH is at the moment.
Yeah. Any specific names you're looking at?
I think there's a few. I think probably the one that's edging closest to Ethereum, if anything, is Polygon.
Okay.
In terms of developers actually utilizing it and building on top of it, there's a few others like AVAX. AVAX has a lot of potential, and there's a lot of other like native layer 1s and layer 2s that have potential. I think one thing that I'm looking at to see is whether developers would rather layer 2s that build on top of Ethereum, understanding that the current Ethereum blockchain has its deficiencies and inefficiencies. Would you rather use layer 2s that can allow you to still operate within the Ethereum framework? Because I guess when you mention to the outside world, oh, Ethereum, that's also a name they recognize.
Yeah.
It's also a respectable, reputable name. So you'd want to keep that association rather than saying, oh, like I'm on I don't know, like there's another ecosystem like Moon River, for example. Like, even though they might inherently do things 10 times better than Ethereum does, but just the reputation. So I feel like ZK rollups, layer 2s, that's also going to be a competitive niche, especially for people that want to maintain the integrity of what they're building on Ethereum. Do I think it's going to be toppled? I'd easily say no, but then I think over a 10-year time span, when you look at the stock markets and you look at the Dells, the Yahoos, the Intels of their day, and then you look at Apple and how Amazon and how over time they overtook these guys drastically, Google, I think similar will probably happen within the space. But I think Bitcoin and Ethereum, you can't go wrong holding those two. Yeah. If you wanted to throw another one in, I'll definitely say Polygon.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably say Polygon just from a safe stance view, and because of the utility they're actually trying to provide. A lot of different sectors are able to integrate what they're looking to do and build their vision using a platform or blockchain or ecosystem like Polygon.
Yeah, I'm sure you get asked a lot, like what coins should people be accumulating? And one thing I've been saying to people recently is don't necessarily buy the best asset, buy what people think is going to be the best asset,
Exactly.
you know?
Yep.
And that's something we learned. I remember, you know, we obviously kept in touch through the bear market, what we were accumulating and things like that. And when we saw people buying Doge and we were thinking, what are these kids doing? They're going to learn the hard way. But it was us that actually had to adapt, right?
Exactly.
And kind of understand that it's not the fundamentally sound projects that are always going to perform the best. It's actually what people want to put their money into, what people think they're going to get the best return from, because ultimately it's still a speculative market, right?
Yeah.
That being said, again, no one hold you to this, but what narratives do you think are going to be the ones driving the next bull run? You know, last bull run we saw NFTs, we saw DeFi, somewhere like you said, we saw the metaverse and gaming and things like that, which I think is going to be a big one in the next cycle, and NFTs kind of go hand in hand with the gaming narrative, but and AI obviously. What are the main narratives you kind of see driving the next cycle?
You've just mentioned them. For me, it's gaming. Why I say gaming in particular is because it actually has utility. It has utility and functionality. It's one of the spaces generically that have such a huge user base, client user experience that currently exists, which means bull market or not, if you find a perfect fit or perfect intersect between a project that has blockchain or crypto elements or financial elements, which is like GameFi, then this is something that's going to operate around the clock. So I think that is definitely going to be one. I definitely think L2s, ZK rollups are going to be huge as well. And that's mainly to tackle the issues that come around as a result of the Ethereum gas fees. When the bull market is in its full-fledged form and you start having to pay crazy fees to transact on the Ethereum blockchain or use Ethereum-based decentralized exchanges, I think everyone's tired of that, even NFTs as well. It's like you want to make quick, fast transactions. The ETH blockchain is very deficient in that at the moment. So I think whoever can solve that problem most efficiently is definitely one that people or developers more so are going to take the risk to work with. I think that's a point worth mentioning actually. And that sort of would take me to sort of the Web3 side of things or consulting side of things. But before we get to that, is people don't really pay much attention to developers. But I feel like developers are very they're the dark horses of the space because they drive everything.
Yeah.
They're the ones who create these projects. They're the ones who decide which blockchain they're going to build on.
Yeah.
And based on that, based on how many people decide to use it, drives the volume, it drives the narrative, it drives the eyeballs to that specific project or ecosystem. So I think one thing that I'm trying to do is just trying to network with more developers and hear what they're saying from the back end, if that makes sense.
See what they're saying on the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because no one really knows what they're up to, but in a moment of time or that time lapse, you'll begin to see whatever they were working on is whatever's going to start to do the numbers, if that makes sense. So gaming, L2s, obviously layer ones, I don't think that's going to go anytime soon. There definitely is room for that competition of, I guess, third place.
Yeah.
So Solana was flying the flag for that.
Yeah.
But then obviously we know what happened with that.
Yeah.
It's interesting as well. We're just seeing how a lot of projects are failing because of poor risk management, which is pretty interesting. But then I would also say I want to see how AI is going to take place or take shape within the space. My only thing with that niche is just that I feel like it's just going to be so much speculation because right now I don't see how many developers or how many companies are going to create actual viable product. It sounds good. Oh, AI is the future. It's like AI catches your ear as a niche, but how many people are actually creating functional products or viable use cases, especially when it comes to the blockchain or crypto related.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit skeptical about that one, but definitely anything that has AI, that's the narrative that's gonna, in stocks, in crypto, that's gonna be one that you definitely have to look out for.
I think crypto almost lacks the funding as well, because Microsoft and Google, it seems like they're going to be the biggest players in the AI space.
100%.
And then you've got these, I don't know, coins with 50 mil market cap saying they're going to revolutionize AI.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to speculation. It's not about what is the best, it's about what people think is going to be the best.
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree with that. I think off the back of that, I think another one is going to be projects that focus on tokenization. So NFTs, but NFTs in a different format. I almost feel like NFTs is going to experience what the last bull run did to cryptos. So where you find that you can invest in anything, but now the next bull run is more refined. So only the cream of the crop in terms of NFTs are going to thrive. But then also I think projects or like companies or people that focus more on the use case. So for example, tokenization of assets. Why I say that now is because with the monetary crisis that is currently being experienced, a lot of people are looking for ways to protect their value. Now, if you can hide your value in tokenized assets, whether that be art, whether that be gold, whether that be real estate, tokenization of real estate is a huge one.
Yeah.
So these are going to be some of the projects that I believe that people start to take interest in. I know like one or two have sort of emerged, but I don't think anyone has taken a lion's share and said, okay, these are the go-to guys for tokenization, if that makes sense. So I think that's going to be huge as well. So yeah, those are a few niches that I'm looking at currently.
Just on the tokenization point, we kind of saw it start in the last bull run where people were tokenizing NFTs, like the high value NFTs, so they can, you know, have the same kind of portfolio structure as somebody who maybe doesn't have the same capital as, you know, person B or person A.
Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting, especially tokenizing real estate, because when you tokenize an asset that's worth, say, I don't know, 2 million, but you don't have 2 million yourself, you can then actually have the same portfolio structure as the man with a portfolio of 10 million, right? Because you can just buy a piece of that real estate or that asset that's 2 million rather than needing the full 2 million yourself to buy it. So
100%.
I agree with you 100%. And especially tokenization of real estate, I think that's going to be huge in the coming years.
100%. And I think that's definitely one to look at, both in terms of tokenization of real estate, but then also I think land, digital land, I still think there's space for that. I still do think there's space for that. I think the metaverse is not going to perform as well this next bull cycle. Why I say that is because I feel like it was a bit more of a phase or fad. Do I believe that there's room for it? 100%. But I feel like it will be quiet this bull market. People will focus more on developing and building actual infrastructure and how it's actually going to function within a real world space. And then it will begin to emerge probably the next few years after that. But definitely digital land, I do believe that is one to look at, because I think the concept of real estate is one that you can't overlook. And right now, obviously, if you're a property expert, you'll probably be looking around to see how the property markets globally are going to respond to the recessions that are looking like they're taking place. And so a lot of people have been limited in terms of the barrier to entry. Real estate is very cash intensive. If you're a real estate entrepreneur, that's a different case, because okay, you can use strategies like rent to rent or lease options or deal sourcing and stuff like that, but that's not owning real estate. And so for the person that doesn't have a minimum of 5 figures to be able to plow into a property, they're thinking, how can I still gain exposure to real estate without actually having what would be a barrier to entry? So that's why I say the tokenization of real estate, a lot of people are going to look into it. And I feel it allows you to probably be more of a global investor as well. So for example, like, I don't know if you know, like Ryan Sahan.
The famous real estate agent, right?
From like America.
$1 million listing or something like that. Yeah.
And I think he was speaking about partnering with like a blockchain company or something like that. And there was a huge multi-million development they were working on, and it was probably they were flirting with that idea of tokenizing it. And it's like, okay, if I'm based in the UK, pardon, if I'm based in the UK and I'm not an expert of real estate out in the States, but I still want to gain exposure, it's probably more safe for me to like invest in a tokenized form of something that's very reputable than probably like a small residential property that I have no clue about the area. So yeah, I think that's going to be huge as well. I think there's going to be so many different niches. I think meme coins are still going to continue.
Well, we've seen it with Pepe recently.
Exactly. As long as TikTok exists and gives Gen Z that voice that they need within this space and other spaces as well, I think meme coins will have a place. People don't want to hear it. Even I didn't want to hear it, to be honest. But at the end of the day, someone's going to make money from meme coins, whether it's you, whether it's me, or someone else. Someone's going to be crazy enough to plow some change into it and then see some returns on it. Because it just speaks to the virality that the narrative or the tool case of like virality. Do you get what I mean? And so I think there will always be room for it. And you can see it in the middle of a bear market where there's no intrinsic value. People just need a reason to laugh. They need something to keep them interested. And meme coins, they serve that purpose.
Literally.
So yeah, I think stable coins, even though that's not really something you invest in, but I do think there will be more developments around stable coins, just as there's more interest around regulations, and you see a lot of these governments and countries begin to flirt with the ideas of CBDCs. They're going to look into stable coins and they're going to see either what exists. Obviously, Circle has been like the darling of like a lot of regulators, especially over in the States. I do feel like, especially with what happened with Luna, there is room for stable coins to emerge. I don't think there's going to be a lot of them, but there'll be one or two that emerges. Okay, cool. In terms of a global financial order.
The funny thing about that though is with USDC, it carries third-party risk, right? Because we saw it depeg in the banking crisis you were talking about earlier when the banks were getting liquidated. There was, I think Circle had borrowed money to Silicon Valley Bank, is that right? And then if they'd gone bust, obviously they weren't going to be able to service that debt. So it depegged for a bit and then managed to come back. But yeah, I definitely agree with that point that, you know, there's room for more stable coins. And if there is like a BRICS or, you know, some kind of basket of currencies, if there can be a stable coin for that, that would be handy. Because even me, like the way I got dollar exposure when the pound was crashing was through stable coins. You know, I wasn't like sending the money or going to the post office to get dollars. It was just through crypto, right? Getting that dollar exposure. Cool. I know you're a big advocate of Web3 and you're very well versed in the space and, you know, a deep thinker in the space. How do you kind of see Web3 being integrated and that kind of whole adoption? Because Web3 is still really complicated. You know, no one really understands what it is or kind of how it works. And I think the companies that are going to do the best in the coming years are going to be the ones that integrate Web3 without the end user actually realizing that they're interacting with Web3. Right? How do you kind of see that playing out?
Now, I think this is where over the last 1-2 years I've been forced to grow a bit. If I tell you I was a Web3 expert, I'd be lying to you. But I'm definitely much more knowledgeable, and I'm actively learning as well, looking to see how I can develop myself through education. Why I say that is because there's two types of people in this space. I think a lot of light is given to the first type of person, which is an investor. A lot of people are introduced to crypto and digital assets through the investment vehicle, but not many people actually take much time to think, how can I actually be a part of the ecosystem? How can I be one of the people or one of the entities that actually provide value? What are the different types of value? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you think of crypto, you think of, oh, what coin can I buy? Rather than, you know what, how can I become a blockchain developer? Or how can I become someone that is involved in business development? Or how can I become someone that helps to provide or mediate liquidity, like an OTC provider? And so these are some of the questions I've started to ask myself and trying to position myself, because the way I see it is that Someone like Rishi Sunak is saying he's looking to make the UK a crypto hub. Well, you know what? If they're gonna do that, they're gonna need to like access companies or service providers that actually have the know-how of how to create or develop blockchains, have the understanding of blockchain architecture, have the understanding of crypto regulations domestically and internationally or globally, or people to help frame policy, stuff like that. So you're going to need people that are lawyers, people that are coders, people that are accountants, people that are all these things that usually when you speak of the corporate side of things or you speak of a 9 to 5, a lot of people are deterred from, because it's like you get into crypto and FX to become financially free, independent. You don't need a boss.
Yeah.
And so in doing that, a lot of people actually realizing that there's a lot of opportunity that's going to be missed, because the UK government, they're probably going to go to Ernst & Young, they're going to go to Deloitte, they're going to go to KPMG, they're going to go to all these other consultancies. They're probably going to hit up Microsoft or Oracle or Google or whoever it is, because these guys have the corporate infrastructure to provide these services. But you and I are the ones who are actually experts. We're crypto natives. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So why limit yourself to one form of value acquisition, which is just investing? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think like more so what I'm trying to do now is see how to provide a purpose or context for people who are like, you know what, I love crypto, but I don't think I'm supposed to be a full-time crypto investor or FX trader. There's nothing wrong with working. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially if it's aligned with your purpose now. And I think people need to distinguish between the term, the rat race, because I feel like everything corporate in people's mind is what has been shoved in under the umbrella of a rat race. But it's like Vitalik, look how many people he employs at Ethereum. Are they stuck in a rat race? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
No, they're doing something, they're a part of history.
Yeah.
And you can't always become a part of history by investing. Well, to be honest, most people that invest aren't a part of history.
Yeah.
Because investing is self-service.
Yeah.
Or self-serving. It doesn't provide value. And that's the difference between being an investor and an entrepreneur. So for example, yourself, you trade the markets, that's fine. It's just you and the markets, which may suit your personality type. And it suits mine. Do you get what I mean? And so, but you step into your hat or the shoes of an entrepreneur when you package your services and you start to teach people.
Yeah.
Because now you're actually providing value to someone other than yourself.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
And so that gives you a sense of purpose and satisfaction aside from the money. And so a lot of people think that, okay, you want to invest and do this and that, but you have to get rid of that other side of things. And it's like, no, why can't you be the person that creates the next blockchain that's going to revolutionize healthcare?
Yeah.
No one ever thinks of it like that. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Or when they look back in 10 years' time, you'll be one of the people that they'll say that, oh, you know, like I was actually instrumental in shaping policy around crypto or how like people trade. Like,
yeah,
that doesn't happen when you're just trading the markets in your room. Do you get what I mean? So that's where Web3 sits for me, thinking more things from a enterprise standpoint. How does blockchain, and I use blockchain rather than crypto, because crypto is a vehicle. Blockchain is the infrastructure, the technology. Do you get what I mean? So blockchain, I guess some people use it interchangeably with crypto, but crypto sits on blockchain technology. But blockchain can be used for anything or so many different things. And that's why I was talking about use cases. So for example, it will get to a stage where the government are like, and this is where I believe niches like NFTs are going to fit in. Okay, cool. We want a blockchain to house people's information. What type of information? Your national insurance number, your driving license, your medical records, your car ownership details, property information, who owned the house, when did they own it, how much did they buy it for. If all this information can be housed on the blockchain, there's so much scope in terms of enterprise and in terms of building, but I don't think a lot of people actually see how blockchain can be integrated into today's society. And for those people that can think, there's a lot of opportunity. So for me, that's where I see Web3 going, where it's like revolutionizing things like supply chain, things like even marketing, things like even, I don't know, like insurance. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have your policy locked in. No one's going to do insurance fraud and say, you know what, oh, this actually belongs to so-and-so. Well, no, the blockchain has recorded that this deed was signed at this date. This is the legal owner. This is the policy. This is the exact tenets of that policy. Information is not going to get lost in translation.
Yeah, it can't be changed, right?
Exactly.
Once it's there, it's there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of room for revolutionization in niches that require transparency, that require security, especially whilst we're going a lot of technological advancements. A lot of things are changing. But if you have an infrastructure where crucial information can be kept and maintained and be regulated like clockwork, especially outside the regulation of human beings, where there's a lot of room for error, mistakes, or judgment, because things are subjective rather than objective, then I feel like there's so much room to accrue value in that area.
Yeah.
So that's what Web3 represents to me. And I want to be able to help people to begin to see where they fit in that. Because I think there's a lot of opportunities, especially like if we're trying to tie it back to like keep it as close to crypto. It's like if you're a developer or someone that does like coding now, like, and you become a blockchain developer or like engineer or architect, you now can partner with someone who has the vision but doesn't have the know-how. And then you can say, you know what, they don't have the money, or they may have a bit of money, but you negotiate, okay, I want 5, 10%, 20% equity in this. There's no cap or ceiling on how much that can become in 5 years. Even crypto is so crazy that in 1 year, everything can change. You get what I mean? But it's now you have some like a piece of a pie that is not finite. That's a very crazy concept.
Yeah.
To have an infinite pie.
Yeah.
So it's like that's sort of what I think about it. But like, what are your thoughts on it, or like, what's your understanding of it currently?
Similar to you, but you're a lot more well versed than I am, which is why, again, you know, I wanted to kind of ask you. But I haven't really done a deep dive into Web3, but I know you have, which is why I asked the question. But for me, I'm more of a trader, so for me, it's more, like you said, not providing value to the economy, but no, for me, it's more about crypto. You know, crypto is why I'm interested in Web3. I don't really have a huge interest in Web3.
Yeah.
But for people listening to this, maybe they're in their early 20s, they don't know what to do. They want to, you know, escape from the matrix or whatever. Is that where you tell them to focus right now? Is Web3? Do you kind of see that as being the kind of rocket ship? I mean, we'll talk about wealth in a bit, but is that where you'd encourage people to focus their attention on Web3?
I'd say it's one of many areas they can focus on. It's definitely a good guess. I feel like if I had to give myself this advice like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I would look at where things are going. And if I didn't know what to do, I'd just take a bet on what I think the future looks like. Okay, the world is gearing towards AI. Why don't I just pick up something AI related? You know, there's no harm in building according to the future, if that makes sense. And so with Web3, I don't think it's any different. You can see, and the best place to be is where timing wise, you're not too far out. So I guess even from a crypto perspective, it's like the best time to start investing isn't necessarily when the bear market has just started. You'll still see the same returns, but in terms of the length of time, you'll have to wait a bit longer.
Yeah.
The best time you want to try is you want to try and get to as close to the edge of, or the end of the bear market, or like the accumulation phase when things starts to get boring, because then the time lapse starts to increase. So you don't want to start looking out into like 20, 30 years and saying, oh yeah, like the world is going to look like this. Oh, you're going to be waiting for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But in terms of like a 5-year horizon, you're just about to go into uni and you're thinking, okay, what should I start studying, or this, that, and the other. You look at what you see in the news, what you see in terms of, if you read a lot, like what are some of the areas you feel like there's going to be a lot of demand? are they currently underserviced? If the answer is yes, then it's not a bad guess to sort of position yourself there. So I definitely feel like the world is heading towards there. And one thing you'll realize is that there's a lack of specialization. You listen to some of these arguments or conversations that, like, let's even use the US Congress, they're having in Congress, and it's like, some of them they still don't know what Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
And these are some of the smartest people in the world, allegedly, that run like the affairs of like a whole nation, right? And they still don't have an idea of something that's going to be so pivotal. So then why don't you establish yourself as an expert or as a thought leader or as a service provider within that space?
Yeah.
That's just the way I see it, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting into computers in the 70s or 80s or,
Exactly.
you know, whenever, right?
Yeah.
Like the super early days, the people who did that managed to generate generational wealth from it. And going back to what you said about the rat race, being in the rat race, if you were working on computers in the 80s or like the early days, you weren't really in the rat race. Like you were part of something much bigger. Do you know what I mean?
What's the rat race to you?
What's the rat race to me? I think the rat race to me is waking up every day and your first thought is that you're not happy and you're not enjoying what you're doing, you know? Because if you work a job and you love it, you're not in the rat race, like you said. So that's the rat race to me. Is most people hate their job, 99% of people out there hate their job, but it's not bad enough that they quit and chase their dreams, but it's kind of all right. They tolerate it. They earn 2-3 grand a month and they don't like it, but they tolerate it. That's the rat race for me.
Based on that, then, would you say every day you wake up, you enjoy, even though you're doing what you love, you wake up every day and you enjoy like trading? There's never like a day that the market hasn't thrown something at you or something related hasn't thrown something at you that hasn't made you happy. If the rat race is about like happiness.
Yeah, but I think there's obviously days. There's always going to be days where you're not happy. I'm not saying you have to be happy every day to not be in the rat race, right? Because I woke up one morning and lost all my money on FTX, so I'm definitely not happy every day. But I do think that if you wake up most days and you're not enjoying what you're doing, then yeah, that's the rat race, right? Like if you don't like being told what to do and you've got somebody telling you what to do, then yeah, for me that's what the rat race is. But I would consider myself, I used to be in the rat race. As you know, I used to work in a estate agency, right? Yeah. And at first I really enjoyed it. It kind of got to a point where I didn't enjoy it as much anymore. And when you're waking up, putting on your suit and tie, and that's not what you want to be doing, and you feel like you've got a higher purpose and you feel like you can do better things, but maybe you're scared to take the risk, or you're scared to jump, and you're earning kind of decent money, so you just kind of tolerate it. Yeah. That's the rat race. And I can say that because, that was me at one point. Yeah. But I think the way to get out of the rat race is losing the fear of jumping, Like I think I was scared of what maybe other people thought. And then, a book I really like, which I can't remember if we've spoken about before, but The Alchemist. Yeah. I love that book.
You used to post that all the time.
Yeah. And I love that book because after I read that, it kind of flicked a switch in me where I wasn't really scared of like what people thought, and it kind of changed my whole perspective on a lot of things. I've recommended it to some people and they hate it. Some people I've recommended it to, they love it. But for me, that's what the rat race is waking up, not enjoying what you're doing, not being happy first thing in the morning. And like I say, not happy every day. Obviously, there's always going to be bad days, right? Life comes in waves and seasons. Yeah. But if you're not happy with what you're doing and you don't like the trajectory that you're on and you're not changing it, that's what the rat race is to me.
I think that's interesting. Like the reason why I asked that is because I feel like even in the concept or the narrative of the rat race, our minds have sort of been programmed to a specific definition. Now, your definition of it, like it has some of the original themes of like what I've considered the rat race, but even at that is not the same. So it's like, I feel like the rat race is a framework rather than a definition. And I feel like there's many kinds of rat races. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Because for people in a specific construct or aspect of society, the rat race might look at this. So for example, it's usually geared at people who come from an impoverished background. You have to do what you don't like to just make ends meet, and you're stuck. You don't have the happiness you're speaking about. More importantly, freedom. What type of freedom? Usually time freedom, financial freedom,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just on, it's not just happiness; it's more about fulfillment as well.
Fulfillment.
Yeah,
yeah,
not waking up fulfilled.
yeah, fulfilled.
Yeah,
And I think that's good. I think like these are all like key points in terms of like, what are you here to do? What is your purpose? And for me, beyond purpose, it's like where I was going with the rat race as a framework rather than a singular definition is that you could be rich and still in the rat race. If you're in the pursuit of something where there's a never-ending cycle, where you're never fulfilled or satisfied, then you're in the rat race. For some people, it's the pursuit of influence and power, where you can become a billionaire tomorrow, but 1 billion is enough. It's not enough. As soon as you reach 1, you've conquered it. Everything you worked up to that point thinking that this was going to be the milestone that you're contented. Now you're driven to make 2, 5, 10, 15. And it's like there's this endless pursuit where you're not satisfied and you're doing things that you don't want to do per se to have to get there. You may have to do things that you want to do, which is fine as well. But I feel like the rat race is modeled after the wheel of the rat running. There's no end. It's cyclical. Do you get what I mean? And so I feel like depending on what side of society you find yourself in, you could be in a rat race. Do you get what I mean? Whether it's like coming out of poverty, whether it's coming out of a job, whether it's like now you're in a business, you're an entrepreneur, but that entrepreneurship is as good as a job because like there's never ending phone calls. You don't have the time freedom. There's someone you've always got to satisfy. You have to wake up. You even have to do a larger shift than a 9 to 5. I don't know why people talk about 9 to 5 so much in a sense where when you're an entrepreneur, the time isn't less. It's even more.
It's more. Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, fair enough, this is something that you want to do. But then if you become or you pay things in a way where you're in the business rather than working on it, you can easily be in another 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And you're an entrepreneur.
And the stress tolerance as well. It's one thing, people only look at the good part of being an entrepreneur. There's a dark side to 100%. Being an entrepreneur and a lot of stress, you know, that comes with it. Whereas when you're in a 9 to 5, you know you're going to get paid no matter what.
Exactly.
Even if the owner doesn't make money of the business, he's still going to pay your wages. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's not only financial, it's like you say, you can be a successful person in society and still almost be in like your own rat race of chasing your tail and always going for more.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I find it funny just because it's just like, I don't know. I think sometimes people say things, but they don't understand the gravity of what they're saying because it's like you have, especially I think it's like traders that do it a lot. Where it's like, oh, escape to 9 to 5 and you shame people that actually work. But it's like, say like you get to a stage where you're no longer a solopreneur, they call it, like, which is what a lot of traders are, where it's just like, okay, you trade, but then you also may have like a coaching or consulting business where you like teach and train people. Excellent. But then what happens when you want to scale that and employ someone? You actually have an employee, but you're busy telling everyone else that anyone that has a job isn't anything, but you have someone that works. Do you get what I mean? So they're going to look at you like you're the man that they're supposed to get rid of. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's more like about purpose, like what you've mentioned. Are you doing what brings fulfillment to you? Are you utilizing your skill set to add value? Does that value remunerate you monetarily? Does it remunerate you in terms of self-worth, in terms of emotional like credits? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the bigger picture to this discussion.
Yeah.
And just looking at things from where you fit in. Do you get what I mean? You may not be equipped to be the front-facing person, but you may be a very sick number 2.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. I think they call it intrapreneur, right?
Intrapreneur.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you get what I mean? It's like a lot of people look at these companies and a lot of the people that are CEOs, they're not the person that founded it.
Yeah.
But being a CEO is a very specific, and it's funny because a lot of people that found stuff call themselves CEOs because they think it's synonymous, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
So it's like, even Elon now, apparently he's stepping away because he's found a CEO. But
for Twitter, right?
Exactly, for Twitter. And it's just like, you may not be the greatest number 1, but you may see someone like Gio and be like, you know what? I can help you take Vivid to the next level.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And you shouldn't feel undervalued or like look down on yourself because you're not the star of the show.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
The example I always use is Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's kind of right-hand man.
Perfect.
Is someone going to tell him he's in the rat race?
Exactly.
The guy's a billionaire, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I agree as much as that. Like, you might not be a number one, but you might be a good number two, and don't let people shame you for wanting to do that and kind of play your part in the business. Like you say, most businesses, the founders are not the CEOs.
100%.
And most people don't seem to understand that. But I agree with you. I think in the trading niche is probably a conversation for another time, but there is a toxicity around being full-time. Like, I have guys say to me, when should I quit my job? What's the rush? You know? What's the rush?
What is the rush?
Yeah, because even in Market Wizards, I can't remember who it is, but there's one, I can't remember which Market Wizards book. I think it's the most recent one, Unknown Market Wizards.
Okay.
There's a guy who was a profitable trader when he's working his 9 to 5. He left his job to be a full-time trader. He wasn't profitable, went back to his job and was profitable. And he's one of the traders featured in Market Wizards. So as long as your job doesn't take away from your trading, you can still trade alongside the job.
Exactly.
I always say, what's the rush? And also changing the perspective of your job. You know, some people, they hate their job, but actually it's their job that's paying them, that's allowing them to invest in their education, buy funding challenges, invest in crypto, invest in XYZ, you know? So changing the perspective, life is all about perspective, right? So changing the perspective of your job and seeing it as a vehicle or something you can do alongside what you do, especially if you enjoy your job. You know, 100%. There's no, I don't know, some people think they want to do whatever they want with their free time, right? Like, they want to be full-time traders so they can just do what they want. It doesn't work like that. You can't just spend all your time doing what you want. You can go for lunch X amount of days a week. Eventually it gets boring. You can go to the gym. Obviously you do that every day regardless, but what people think they're going to do with their free time when they're in their job, it's never like that. You're not going to trade from a beach every day. The novelty will wear off, you know?
Exactly.
Especially if you trade a system that doesn't require that much time, you need to find other ways to fill your time, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And the more time you spend on the charts, you'll realize the less profitable you become.
Yeah.
Especially if you're doing it out of boredom.
Yeah. Because
like you said, if you're actually consistent or you're a professional trader, then trading is boring. It's very systematic. You're not on the screen for 10 hours. You're looking for a very specific setup, not something that tickles your fancy, because that's what pays the bills.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like a lot of people don't know what to do themselves.
Yeah.
Like, and it's either you're going to have a lot of discipline, or you actually need to find something that's going to fill that time. Because when you realize being a full-time trader doesn't mean that you're actually doing X for 12 hours a day, you're going to be in for a shock.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's where a lot of people don't know it's actually a blessing in disguise. Whether it's a job, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's a hobby, you have to have things that occupy your time, and give you that breathing room to be able to actually come with clarity, and you can actually look forward to what you're doing as an FX trader, rather than feel like, oh, I have to wake up, I have to be at the charts, and then you can actually start to hate the process of what it takes to actually be successful in this space. So it's a very interesting one. But in saying that, I feel like entrepreneurship, I don't think everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur.
I agree.
So when people tell you, oh yeah, like you need to start a business, you need to do this, I don't agree. What I do believe though is everyone can be an investor. And I think there's a very big difference. You don't need to be an entrepreneur, but you need to be an investor. If you're working a job, find a way to protect that value. That's the first stage. And I guess in trading, you would say, look after your capital. Do you get what I mean? What's your risk management? But then you need to find a way to grow your money. Do you get what I mean? And that's where I believe, even if you're someone that works, you should be someone that invests or looks for opportunity to protect and grow their wealth. That's an investor. An entrepreneur is someone that starts a business, starts a service, or provides a product or whatever it is, and looks to provide value and receive value on behalf of that. Not everyone has the skill sets to do that. Not everyone has the skill set to mobilize a team, work with different vendors. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So you just need to see what side of the spectrum you feel on. Yeah. But yeah, that's just my take anyway.
No, I agree. I kind of see money as stored energy, and I see investing as buying your future time, right? Buying time in the future.
100%.
we don't have much time left, and it's something I want to get your thoughts on.
That's cool.
Because we've been going an hour and a half already.
Wow, that's crazy.
Flown by, yeah. Wealth, generational wealth. Again, I know you got a lot of interesting thoughts on this topic, which is why I want to bring it up. First of all, what does wealth mean to you? Or what does generational wealth mean to you? Because I hear you talk about this stuff a lot, right? And you got some interesting thoughts.
Wealth, I guess if you look at it from a standard perspective, I guess it's the accumulation of value or a significant amount of value, usually economic. But I guess wealth in the sense of it is just abundance, it's prosperity. And I feel like to be truly wealthy, you can't just be wealthy in one area. You can't just be financially rich or wealthy, but emotionally bankrupt, spiritually bankrupt, psychologically, do you get what I mean? Relationship wise, you're not thriving, you're not successful.
Yeah.
To me, that is that's not my ideal form of wealth. I don't need to be remembered as the richest person that ever lived. I would rather be the most impactful or more impactful and influential than just for someone to put me in the Guinness Book of World Records and say, oh yeah, you had whatever in your account.
Yeah.
And so wealth for me, this is more subjective definition, is being able to accumulate value, but create an ecosystem where it doesn't stop with me. It circles. There's a cycle. The more I give, the more I get back. The more I give, the more I'm able to empower people, and that they're able to increase in their intrinsic value, but external value as well. And so the concept of generational wealth, I think, is very interesting because you have like many schools of thoughts on it. But I came to realization one day is like generational wealth, that concept is not really in its full effect until you no longer exist. And that's a truth that a lot of people don't like to think about. For something to be generational means that it transcends you. Now, whilst you might have your child or your grandchild that might be alive for that, it's like, what are you leaving behind? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so truly, I don't think a lot of people are ready to prepare for generational wealth because their ideal of wealth exists whilst they're alive. How much can I accumulate whilst I'm here? What can I do with it? And how can it serve me?
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like generational wealth is much deeper than a lot of people expect, because let's look at the different forms. I guess one of the forms is life insurance. It's very interesting where like you, I guess, set aside a specific amount to accrue or to lock down a specific policy that's worth a certain amount, but it's only activated as soon as you die.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to sound too dark in it, but I feel like it's very interesting to think about what type of wealth you want to accumulate and what you actually want to do with it. I think for me, it's all about the purpose assigned to that wealth. One of the reasons that I seek to be wealthy is more so from a position of faith, where it's like, I know what God wants me to do with that money,
Yeah.
who He wants it to impact, how He wants it to impact people. And so for me, I feel like it's interesting. Some people, they're into cars or they're into watches and they're into this and they're into that. And it's like, for me, I look at such people and I'm like, well, like, I would rather like use that money to maybe like send someone to school, or like it's changed to you, but then it's life changing to someone else. I think obviously there's the balance of like, obviously do what you love, especially with your hard-earned money, like enjoy life to the full, but also how using that to impact others. So I never just want to be wealthy for the sake of having a specific number tied to my name. I want that number to translate into influence and into impact on other people. So that's more of my subjective view on wealth.
How did you come into faith? Because obviously, it's a big part of your life, right?
Yeah.
Were you born? Is your family Christian or how?
Yeah. So my family's my family is full of Christians. So yeah, my parents like really instilled that into us. And so yeah, I've grown up in a house of faith. Like they grew up being ministers, and so it's like it's funny because people say, "Oh, you born Christian?" You can't be born Christian. In a way, you can be born into a household, but obviously there comes a point where, as a believer, you need to accept the faith for yourself.
Yeah.
based on your own understanding. So it's not enough to just say, oh, my mum's a Christian, dad's a Christian, oh, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work like that. It's like you have to come to a stage where you accept Jesus or whoever you believe for yourself. mine is Jesus Christ. So yeah, it's interesting from that regard where I've seen and I've grown up in that environment, and I guess that sort of steered me in that direction anyway. I guess if it was someone else, and maybe you're born in like a Muslim home or Hindu home or whatever, like other religion, you may be more inclined to now follow that. But yeah, I feel like I was able to get to a place where I've weighed up different options, and this was the faith that I felt like best represented who I needed to become and the deficiencies I have and what it's able to give to me and what I'm able to give back to the world. And I feel like that should have a knock-on effect on everything you do. Do you get what I mean? So it's like, for some people, they might just be like, okay, the reason why I'm doing XYZ is because it's my ambition. Like, I want to be the top in this, or I want to do this, so then I can do that. Or as a person of faith, it's always like, your life is not your own in a way. What does God want you to do? Why is he sending you here? So it's like, you never know the deeper purpose to what you're doing or the actions that you have in a moment until you allow time to unfold. And this is where people cross paths. You don't know why you're crossing paths. Do you get what I mean? Say, for example, I met you all these years ago back in the office doing the training, and here we are today. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. Many years later. Could be coincidence, most probably not. But it's like, what else would have brought us across each other's paths? Do you get what I mean? Yeah. And so I feel like destiny, understanding your assignment, but I guess having a greater cause, having to fight for something that is beyond yourself. Those are principles that I sort of hold in higher esteem than just ambition. Do you get what I mean? So yeah.
Cool. Back from a quick break, I had a bit of a coughing fit, but here we are. Cool. So before we wrap up, we haven't got long left. Just want to talk a bit about money. It's very similar to kind of what we've been talking about, but you know, what is money? What are your views on money? It kind of ties in with what we were just talking about as well.
Yeah.
You know, things like the Fed obviously being a privately owned entity. Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
What are your kind of thoughts on money itself? Like, what is money?
If we want to take a deeper dive into it, I feel like money is a vehicle of value. Now, there's different vehicles of value. So, for example, money is one, real estate is another, gold, precious metals is one, time is an intangible one. And so there's different qualities that actually make up money. And I guess if you've like done some study on it, and like people like Ray Dalio, Mike Maloney, they highlight the different qualities. I believe there's like 5 or 6. So there's stuff like tangibility, salability,
fungibility,
yeah. all the ilities, stock to flow, and stuff like that. And so there's actually different qualities, but that I guess speaks more to which forms the superior version of money that we look at. So money has evolved, and I guess we can tie this back to like Bretton Woods and a gold-backed fiat currency system. And so even money and fiat are two different things.
Yeah.
It's interesting because money, I guess, it's a medium of exchange, so to speak. But then fiat was the receipt of that medium.
Yeah.
So money used to be gold.
Yeah. As good as gold. Exactly. That's where the phrase came from, right? Yeah.
So people then would used to trade based on like precious metals, and then you had the fiat would be the receipt of, okay, I'm giving you this amount of credit based on this amount of gold.
Yeah.
In reserves.
It's just an IOU, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So money is evolving, but I would just say it's a form of value. It's a way to store and transact value. Like you said, it's an energy. This is why we talk of the flow of currency, the flow of the markets. There's a flow to money. There's people transaction every day, which is what gives room to the foreign exchange market.
Yeah.
So that's money.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And like I said earlier, you know, I think money is stored energy, and investing is just, buying that energy or buying that time, and money is just stored time. Cool. Portfolio structure. Before we go, I'm very conscious of time. For the next 3 years, for people listening, how would you advise they go about portfolio structure? How much allocation? Obviously, there's risk that comes into it, but I guess this is more for you. Like, are you going to be 100% in crypto? Are you going to be, I don't know, real estate? Like, how does your portfolio look for the next 3 years? And again, just to caveat this, for people listening,
this is not
this is not financial advice. We don't want to hear in 2 years, you told me to do this. So, yeah.
You know what? I'm a bit flexible in my approach at the moment, but I do have a rough or estimated way I want to structure my portfolio. Right now, it's focusing on acquisition. Acquisition of assets that are not necessarily tied or as tied to fiat. So because of that, you look at assets like crypto. Obviously, I'm biased, but if you look at it even from a neutral perspective, like you do see the qualities against the definition of money that allow it to be something that will hold value. Another I'm looking into, or I want to look into, is land. Obviously, land and real estate are sort of two different things. So you can think of land in terms of real estate land, but you can also look at it from a point of view in terms of agriculture. The reason I say that is because I do believe we're entering into a period where famines will be more common. And so even if you look at people like Bill Gates, he's now the largest, or the second largest landowner in America.
Yeah.
He was
agricultural land, especially.
Exactly. And he was a tech guy. So what is this guy doing buying up all this agricultural land? He must know something that we don't. But that's not what I base it off. It's just more of a faith thing. But I do believe there'll be more famine, and I believe COVID taught us that we need to be able to have a level of resource, or being able to be resourceful, especially when supply of goods we need are very low. And in those times as well, from the business side of things, that provides for exponential increase in value. So for example, if you own land and a company, or let's say even the government, need to use that land, you're in the position of power because you own it. They can lease it from you. So that can be even more of a stable income than some other vehicles that some people like to use. Real estate, it's like a love-hate relationship with me and real estate because it's something you need to have in your portfolio. But then when I look at it against something like crypto, I'm just like, what am I getting into it for? Crypto for me is the vehicle by which I don't want just to protect my wealth for, but will allow for larger growth. Like if you invest in the right, or structure your crypto portfolio the right way, it's going to give you more returns than real estate. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so real estate for me is more of a way to keep your value, protect your value. So I'm sort of assigning different investment vehicles to different purposes. For some people, real estate is what they'll use to grow their wealth. Well, for me, I've found crypto has a lower barrier to entry, and it's going to provide me with a better opportunity to grow my wealth more. Okay, that's for that side of things. However, you can't risk your whole portfolio. Okay, let me look for precious metals also, your gold, your silver. So that's something that I need to look into a bit more. However, I'm a bit apprehensive in a way, just because of, again, some of the properties of money. You have stuff like being able to transport money. How divisible is it? The security aspect to it. So, yeah, but precious metals would probably make up a smaller part of my portfolio.
Yeah.
Crypto, a significant chunk. Real estate further down the line, a significant chunk. And then I guess a middle-sized chunk to land, whether that be real estate or agriculture. So that's what I'm looking at. And I think just to like obviously plug stuff like what you're doing, this is where FX is great, because you use that as a cash cow to then begin to fund all these things.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So FX is not the be-all and end-all. It's like actually a means to an end.
Yeah.
So whatever money you're making from vehicles like FX, or if you have like a business, I know people have online businesses, drop shipping, e-commerce, consulting, coaching, whatever it is, then you begin to diversify into these different portfolios. I know everyone has a different. It depends on your ethos, because some people will be of the notion that, look, there's no point spreading yourself too thin. Look at the richest people in the world. They didn't diversify. Like Bezos went full in on Amazon.
Yeah.
Like Jobs went full in on Apple.
Yeah.
And so for some people, it's like, I'm going to fully invest in crypto, not just with my money, but with my ideas. I'm going to service. I'm actually going to become someone that builds something within this infrastructure. If that's your conviction, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Especially until you get to a stage where you feel like, okay, now it makes sense. I've accumulated enough. Now I feel like it's actually worth investing in real estate. But not like the perception some people have where it's like, oh, let me get on the property ladder. And it's like, well, you've accumulated this much value now and you're going to trap yourself by getting a mortgage, giving away all that deposit money, and now you're living in the place. Let's say even if you did it as a business, how much is it going to give you back in return?
Not much.
Rental wise.
Yeah.
Is that the best use for your money at that moment in time? If it is, excellent. And if it brings you satisfaction, excellent. But you need to begin to weigh up the different options and see what actually makes sense and what's viable, rather than what people have told you. Because mind you, our positions are completely different. You're listening to me, you could probably have a completely opposite rationale. As long as it works out and the equation balances at the end, then yeah. But just make sure it's educated. But I definitely say look into those investment vehicles, digital assets, precious metals, land, be it real estate or agriculture.
Also risk appetite, right? Depends on people's risk appetite. If you're younger, you can pour more into crypto. You've got your whole life ahead of you to make money. If you're 50 and you've got kids, you can't take on as mumuch risk as the 20-year-old, you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, I completely agree with that. Like what you said about, you know, kind of describing the vehicle to wealth and then having your active income. So you said you can create an active income from crypto and then still use crypto as the wealth vehicle.
Exactly.
And then you reference like Bezos. For him, his active income was Amazon, and also the wealth builder was Amazon as well, right?
Exactly.
It's kind of the main thing.
Yeah.
But I completely agree. Like people need an active income. They need to identify what their active income is and identify crypto. Because what you don't want is to have $2,000 to your name, quit your job and just be a crypto investor with $2,000. Crypto is the vehicle to wealth, but you need an active income to fuel that vehicle, right? Cool. We're out of time, bro. Cool. Before we go for the XRP army, give me a price prediction. Not financial advice.
Oh my god.
Now, just to caveat this, you know I'm not the biggest fan of XRP, right? But I just think the community, I wanna give them something.
The community still exists. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I tell you, like, context, I used to be an avid XRP believer.
That's partly why I'm asking, because yeah,
man. I saw the light a few years ago. Man. But honestly speaking,
when the case settles, it's gonna pump.
You know what? Let's just say it go past all-time highs first, because it hasn't even done that.
You gotta give me a price for it.
Let's say in the next 3 years, I'd love to see it touch $7 to $9.
$7 to $9. That's the thumbnail.
$7
to $7. A shocked face.
Before it would have been $1,000.
Yeah.
But you know what I find funny? XRP would actually make such a great stablecoin, man, because
it doesn't move. Yeah, literally.
So, but I'm interested because I feel like it's always had that top 10 position. This, like, whether in a bear market, in a bull market, and it hasn't even done much price wise.
Yeah.
So I just wonder what is actually sustaining the price like that, because at the top of the bull market, it's still top 5, top 10.
Yeah.
It hasn't moved.
Yeah.
So I can't even put any rational logic behind the whole XRP thing, but for it to go from where it is now in terms of market cap to something more significant in terms of what people are looking for, that is going to need a hefty amount of change to drive the price.
Yeah.
Let's see if the conspiracy theories were accurate. And I was one of those conspiracy
589.
Not 589, but in terms of the utility as rivaling a reserve currency or something along that nature. I do believe it still could play a similar type of role, or in the grand scheme of things, I feel like people had it very black and white. Like, oh, this is going to take over the dollar as a world reserve. I don't think it's going to do that. I don't think anything will do that. I think, like you mentioned, it's going to be an ecosystem or basket of whether currency or instruments that actually help within that transaction. I don't think it'll be the reserve, but I think it may play a part in terms of the bridging element of transacting value. So I think let's see how that plays out. But you can, for the thumbnail, $7 to $9.
Yeah, I think XRP is going to be a good trade, just because going back to what we were talking about earlier about, it's not about what asset's the best, it's about what people think is the best. And I think when the case settles, there's going to be a bunch of liquidity 100%. On the sidelines waiting for that trade. So I think there's a trade to be had. But I'm kind of in the $5 sort of camp. If it breaks all-time high, I'm not even saying that it will, right? But as a trader, I think there's a good trade to be had. Yeah. But bro, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. It's all right. We'll probably have to do a part 2 because there's so much I wanted to talk about that we literally just out of time for. But yeah, bro, thank you very much.
Nice one.
Cool.
Take care, man.